This is day 5 of the Okanagan Reconnect. And as I said before, it's been a blur. But one thing that has been clear is that I have friends in the Okanagan, Beta and Chris Tolley at Moon Curser. They provided a place to sort of do these interviews, well, the ones we did in the South Okanagan, and then at the very end, we get to talk to them. We actually get to talk. The negotiations were ridiculous. We had to go through marketing and press people, and we're also running video on this as well for our YouTube channel. Welcome to your own place.
Delighted to be here with you.
You actually lived here.
We did actually for quite a few years when our kids were younger. This is we moved here in 2004. That was the beginning of our winery undertaking, and this was home for quite a few years. And then when the kids got a little bit bigger, we moved up to Penticton, so still quite close.
You don't miss the vineyards?
We do, but we don't. And what I mean by that is, it's nice to be able to wake up in the morning and not see all the things that we need to be doing next in the day right away, and everything is still within easy driving distance. So we do come down fairly frequently, and of course look after.
And I think another point that you told me about is also the tasting room has its own fires that have to be put out, and one of them would be coming to see you all the time.
We are very lucky right now to have some incredible staff working with us who look after the tasting room and then the operations of the sales function of the winery. So that isn't really so much of a concern anymore. But our little operation from 204 has grown quite a bit, and we're still not large by international standards, but we do in a normal year make about 7,000 cases a year. So it's not something that just 2 people can look after anymore.
It's what's in those cases that's really important. And one more thing, you talked, a couple of days ago, I heard you say when you first planted and opened business.
Yes.
You said
business.
you expected to be selling the wines out on a stand, like a lemonade stand out on the highway.
Not quite that rustic, but definitely. Our enthusiasm for making the best bottle of wine in the world far exceeded our understanding of what that might entail back then. Right now, that was in 2004, so we're 16, 17 years later. Things have changed quite a bit, and in all fairness to us, BC wine industry has also changed quite a bit since then, and I'm sure you know that more than many others here. And but that was the original vision, quite romantic, completely impractical, but still drove us to do a lot of what we did here. It was going to be Chris and I, making the wine together by the side of the road and then selling it out of what was back then the fruit stand here. We evolved since then. Our vision has definitely evolved, and we moved with the times and with our increased understanding of, what it takes to make a good bottle of wine and to sell it, and it's been quite a ride. We've enjoyed it very much.
I knew it was going to be tough to draw her out.
Yeah, it's
I think she's doing
well done, sir. I just want to say, for the record, I think we had a pretty good idea what we wanted to make, but how to do it, but we had no idea about the marketing or how to get it out to customers. And for the record, we never sold a bottle of wine out of a fruit stand.
No, we never did. It was a notion, an idea.
Yeah. We did have a fruit stand, and we did have wine to sell, but we didn't actually combine the two at any point.
What was the first one? Was there a vineyard here when you first started?
No, this was a mixed orchard.
Yeah.
So it was run by the Vieras, and they actually had they ran their fruit stand in the mixed fruit way, so that you could have always something coming into the fruit stand. So that business is a little different now. And they had a fruit stand just over there in a cold storage, and then this was their house. And we took out all of the fruit. The orchard had sort of past its viability, so we took it out and planted the vineyard. But the previous owner was a wine enthusiast, so he had a cellar here, and he had a few vines, and he made homemade wine and that. So we continued. Actually, the cellar is pretty much unchanged, and that's where he kept his wine, which is now sort of a utility room where we keep equipment. And
what had he planted?
Mostly Cab Sauv. He had some he had, I think, a little bit of Chardonnay. He had a vineyard that consisted, this is the way the vineyard was built, very big posts that were put in with holes drilled through them. And then because he was in the construction industry, he had rebar brought in. And he had 5/8 rebar, 20 feet going between the posts, 3 of them, as catch wires and fruiting wires. And then, it probably in equivalent days, $40,000 worth of rebar in his vineyard. But, well, that's what they had, and he grew not much. I think it was mainly for personal use.
And what were your first plantings?
Ours was this vineyard. It was our first plantings.
I mean, what'd you put in the ground?
And so, being wine geeks, we put in 6 varieties on 5 acres. So we put in Roussanne, Marsanne, Viognier, Carmenère, Tempranillo, and Tannat. Okay. You know if people around here would have gone, what are they doing?
Yes.
What are they doing?
Yes, exactly.
First of all, they would have said, why are they planting that many varieties? Any experienced person running a vineyard would be like, it's a 5-acre vineyard, plant one variety. And then the varieties themselves, so that'd be to talk about.
Yes, in all fairness to us, on the surface it does look a little wonky, but there was method to our madness, or so we'd like to think. And the whole idea behind doing what really, in essence, boiled down to a little bit of an experimental vineyard was, point one was, we came to this with love for wine in our hearts. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but that's where we were. And so we were not going to, make wine that everybody else was making because we wanted to satisfy the inner wine geek.
If you had hired a consultant, there's no consultant on the planet that would have said, go and plant those varietals.
No, but well,
Eric was okay with it.
yeah, we did work with but Chris, and I tip of the hat to my wonderful husband here. Chris did a lot of research into what grape varieties might do well in this great site that we had here, and you were right.
It was a tough time because when we bought some grapes in our very first vintage, when we because we planted and waiting for our grapes to grow, we had one grower that we talked to and we said, we're interested in buying the grapes, and he said, the red ones or the white ones? And that was about that was indicative of the level of sophistication at that time. But it all stemmed from being in New Zealand and Australia, where in New Zealand we went to school. In Australia we did extensive touring and in the wine country, and they're very varietal specific there, Shiraz and Cab in Australia, and Sauvignon Blanc in New Zealand, and even the most fiercely patriotic Kiwis would occasionally, in fact, Darren, one of the most patriotic, would say, well, can we, have something other than Sauvignon Blanc? Like, it's great, but, we get a little, and so when we arrived here, I was sort of thinking in those terms, and we, in New Zealand, I opened Oz Clarke's book, and I saw Pinot Gris by Burrowing Owl in the book, and, that was a big lift for us. Oh, look at, we're on the map. And Merlot was obviously king here, so we could have went the route of, we'll champion, we'll do an even better Merlot, we'll do an even better Pinot Gris, but, that wasn't sort of our calling to out Pinot Gris or Merlot somebody else. It was to well, what else do we have? Sort of like the Kiwi experience with Darren saying, well, what else can we do? And even in New Zealand, they're sort of championing Pinot Noir out of Otago, right? And they're expanding into other varieties, and we sort of had that sort of idea. And from Australia, where that they do Shiraz and Cab very well, and everybody knows Barossa and Coonawarra, but you're sort of like, well, what are your little projects? What do you got going? What else is there? Mm-hmm. So that's what we were thinking, and hoping to find, like Sauvignon Blanc in the New World in New Zealand, the apogee of Sauvignon Blanc for some people anyway. We're hoping to find a variety that in the Okanagan would be sort of the same thing. Oh, look at this very awesome interpretation of Variety X from the Okanagan.
But you're now known for that. The very things that we were just been talking about, that's what people talk about.
Yes, and there are differences of opinion, depending on who you talk to. There are those who very much champion the idea of a signature grape for the Okanagan Valley.
Yeah.
We personally feel, okay, I'll speak for myself, but I think you share this opinion. There is so much, so many different microclimates moving north to south in this valley. It almost would be a shame to try and fit just one grape and all the gorgeousness. So.
But how long did it, I gotta get a question in here. Thing is, how long did it take us, the customer, the wine fan, to get it, to realize what was happening here? How long did it take?
Oh.
It took a little while. What I said when we started, there wasn't there was sort of open arms from the customers, but when you got to the sommelier level, where somebody's purchasing on behalf of somebody else and they're trying to make good decisions, they were a little bit reticent to just open arm embrace like the customers in BC were. But that developed with time, and I guess it should, because you don't leap on every new thing. And the reputation and the industry was sort of immature at the time, so it took a while to you're looking at me like...
No, but Peter, I have a question for you. I know you might want to tag on that, but what was the toughest sell over the counter? Which one was it? The anise? Was it the Tanat? What was it?
I don't think I would say that there was any one wine that was a tough sell. I think the challenge for us has always been, because the way, and this is where I sort of, I guess, maybe differ a little bit from Chris, my perception has always been that there's always been that segment of wine lovers who is on a quest to find something new and interesting and unusual quality. We're not talking novelty wine here, but quality wine that is just a little bit of the beaten path. So our challenge has always been to communicate with the customer, to find them and to let them know that we're here. And once they knew that we were here, it was a match made in heaven, because our wines, we do our best to make a really, really good bottle, and the interesting grape varieties contribute so much to that. And so the people who seek that kind of wine out, once they found us, we were friends for life. And so that was always great. Those who maybe aren't quite so interested in wine, who came to our tasting room, it usually came down to basically educating people and saying, this is the Arnais grape, this is where it comes
They
from.
walk
this
in
is
and they
why
want a Chardonnay. That's it. And so if you hand them a Viognier or Arnais or whatever, they
just don't
want the
know
Chard.
about the wine. Yeah, and so, and again,
But
kudos to
again, it begs the question, why are you tasting? Isn't the whole idea of tasting is to discover new wines and new releases?
Yeah, well, to add to what Bita was saying, we have that luxury here at the tasting room, so when people come in, we can interact with them and say, even though you were expecting Chardonnay, let me tell you about Viognier or Tempranillo. That wasn't the luxury of our agent, who has to sell the wine and then isn't there when the customer's actually there to educate them. He was, sometimes less than thrilled about seeing, an interesting new variety like,
Carmenere.
Yeah. But Carmenere had a bit of an acceptance. There was this sort of Black Hills did a little bit of Carmenere, so people knew about it. But things like Tempranillo, especially Tempranillo, because Tempranillo never gets on the label in the old world. Yeah. It's always Rioja or something like that. Ideas like Malbec are a little easier because everybody knows. Even in South America, it's labeled as Malbec. It's not labeled by appellation. So the non-appellation, like Tempranillo, Tanat never generally makes it on the front cover, so to speak. Roussanne Marsanne. Yeah. That was tough. It
all got my attention, all of it, especially those two.
In fact, we worked with Lanny Martinick, who's mainly a nurseryman.
Stoneboat.
Stoneboat. And we said we want to do Viognier, Roussanne, Marsanne, and he provided cuttings for this vineyard. And he said, well, the Viognier I might be able to find. The other two, no, they're not good. So we ended up getting them out of University of California at Davis. Their plant progression block there. This is where the
Okay.
original cuttings came in.
Now, how are you doing so far? Good? Okay, fine. Now, interestingly, you chose two wines to taste today. The Moon Curser, with the new label, by the way, friends, the Arnais, it's beautiful, it's handsome, it's cleaned up, it's just gorgeous. It's the 2020. It's the Little Rascal from Piedmont. And it's a single varietal. It's fantastic. Still the only one that we know being grown in Canada.
Yes.
It won how many golds did it win at the 2021 All Canadian Wine Championships?
So the Arnais brought home a double gold medal, as did the other wine that we'll be tasting today, Dead of Night. And so we were, quite pleased with that performance.
How pleased were you?
So pleased, Terry.
Very pleased. It is.
It's a lovely, it's all joking aside, it's such a lovely pat on the back, especially for a variety that is fairly new to the Okanagan, and to have it be recognized, as sort of worthy of that kind of accolade is fantastic.
We spend the Little Rascal moniker is well deserved because it's very much trouble in the vineyard, and my vineyard manager and I go through the block mentioning that it's a really good spot for reds all the time, just to let the plants know that
Who's in charge?
yeah. They, and then to give them the signal, because it's very pleasing for, I'm sure, Brian, our vineyard manager, Brian DeRoche, and myself, because this. If I can go into the history of the vine a little bit.
No, we don't care.
Okay.
We only care about what it tastes like and smells like.
Okay. Taste it. Anyway, it's a very vintage specific wine, and it throws something new at you all the time. That's the Little Rascal, and so it's hard to deal with, and it's planted on one of the best red spots in the valley, so it's in a really nice spot. So it's nice to see the vine perform, because sometimes it gives you trouble, and anyway, that's.
You know what's nice is that in Italy, northern Italy, Piedmont, it's used for blending in certain of their famous blends. It's nice to see it stand alone and taste it and smell it as its own self. It's its own single varietal.
Yeah, indeed. The original, they had to sort of, it's a sort of an heirloom variety from Piedmont, so they had to bring it back. And I think it fell into disfavor because of the Little Rascal characteristics in it, difficult to work with in the vineyard. But the reason it was brought back is because it's such a nice wine by itself. So you have to be patient, though, I think. Do
you want to pour for His Majesty? Maybe.
I'll pour for you.
This is the first time this has happened.
Is that, where are your glasses,
I got the right one. I had the 19, but this is the 20. And how much did the 2020 change from the 19?
Christopher, do you want to?
Oh, okay, yeah, quite a bit. The 2020 is much fuller, richer wine, with still maintaining a bit of herbaceousness to it. So, and it's got a bit of Sauvignon Blanc style.
Best small winery in Canada.
Let's drink to that. Thank you, Terry.
But this variety changes every year. I think. Couple of years ago, we came in with the same crop load. We came in November at 22.9 bricks. And then the year after that, it ripened almost to 24 bricks. We had to get it off the vine in September. So the vine is, it's
You're going all geeky on me, buddy.
Sorry.
You're going so geeky. Give me the tasting notes that you love most about Arnais.
The crispness, sort of herbaceous and fruit qualities together in the wine. So it's got it's a nice fruit-driven wine, but it also has some earthy, sort of herby characters to it. Good structure, linearity.
Great structure,
to the wine.
great finish. Want to add to that?
The one thing that I always associate with our Arnais that seems to sort of transcend any seasonal differences is almost like a little bit of touch of to me, it's like salinity, that kind of salty
Minerality, yeah.
linear touch that to me is, basically shows up every single year, and I quite enjoy that.
Do you think those somms and masters of wine that were tasting the All Canadian Wine Championships, when they hit this Arnaise, after tasting lakes of Pinot Gris and Chardonnay and whatever, it just is such a stunning about turn left when they taste it that alone wins the day.
It definitely would be fun to be a fly on the wall
Yeah.
during the tastings and just to see people's, sort of initial reaction to the wine. We'd like to think that that's the case.
And then the next question would be, I wonder who made this, and then they all go, we know who made this. There's only one.
Yeah, actually,
Long live blind tastings, I guess.
that happened with our Touriga Nacional when it won platinum.
Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah, they actually said like that because they didn't taste their wine, so they're kind of like, "Are we really going to give a platinum to Touriga Nacional from the valley?" It's sort of an interesting sort of take on what's going on in the minds of the judges, as you said, when they taste the wines.
Now here's the tricky part, Beta.
Yes.
You warned us going into this year that because of production, etc., that production would be down, but the wines would be just smashing.
Yes.
Is there any Arnaise left?
There is no Arnaise left. I feel like apologizing to everybody
To me?
about
To
that.
me? There's no Arnaise with me?
It's yes, and the speed with which the wine has disappeared from our tasting room surprised even us, to the point where Chris and I were left scrambling trying to find a couple of bottles for our private cellar at home. So it's Mother Nature, unfortunately, can be fickle, and even though the wines and during that season ended up with great concentration of flavor, quantities were affected because of the low cropping levels, and so sadly this year and even a little bit next year, we're not going to have as much wine for sale as we normally would, but it's going to be top notch.
Thank you for sharing the 19 and for allowing me to taste this 20. This is fantastic. We're at Moon Curser, as you can tell. But the new label.
Can I put you on the spot, Terry?
Yeah.
I thought I'd say, did you try the 19?
I tried the 19, and then when the 20 came along,
Have you tried?
I moved my. Hold on a second. I need one more. There you
Can
go.
I have a glass?
All right. Hold on.
Would you like to try them side by side?
Sure, you're the interviewer now. You have to interview.
Would you like to?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So here's a new glass, right?
Okay.
And do you want one for the 20?
I have the 20 poured.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Okay. So let's see what happens here.
Beans are over there.
See what.
Ask him a question.
Oh, it's just I was wondering if you,
Lots of questions.
what you thought of the difference between
Oh,
the two
man.
vintages.
Well, first of all, Chris, the 19 has had a chance to settle in, right? Which is almost an unfair advantage because it gets comfortable in the bottle, and I'm kind of wondering. It begs the question: Can a nice cellar for a couple of years?
Yeah, it actually cellars quite well. It sort of gets a little petrol-y character, kind of like Riesling as it ages, and the structure because it's not so fruit-driven, like we were talking about, a little bit of herbaceousness there. So it maintains its characteristics as it ages, but then it adds on the sort of developed petrol character to it. It's quite nice actually aged as well.
Let's compare notes then. You ready? The 19 is fuller, rounder, beautifully. There's a depth to it, a quality, an incredibly long finish. The 2020 is perky, is perkier, has a little more, grabs a little more attention in the mouth. It demands to be paid attention to. Other than that, there are subtle differences that you're going to fill us in on.
Well, I sort of like the sort of like you said, perky, sort of acid-driven structure to the wine. Whereas you said the 19, it's sort of, I don't know if it came out of the gate that way, a little softer, a little rounder. But yeah, I find those are the two main differences. Those two vintages actually weren't too different. If you go back a few vintages, the variation becomes quite wide because the vine doesn't produce the same fruit every year.
What's the oldest one you've tasted?
I think we had a 13, didn't we? Was that
From
the oldest
I'm
one?
trying to remember now.
Does it change color?
No, it doesn't sort of.
Doesn't much,
Yeah,
no.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the 13th that we just sent out, I think, also in our.
And
Yep.
it actually holds. That's why when you're saying how well does it age, I actually quite enjoyed the 13. It sort of built into that petrol character. It loses a little bit of its, sort of bright like pep, as you say. But
Yeah. Favorite pairing?
Oh, seafood, shellfish.
Yeah.
I actually find this wine to be quite versatile because even though it's, it's a white wine, but it brings such nice heft and weight to the palate, it can actually stand up to quite a little bit more than you'd expect. And oysters. I mean,
And Chris,
need I say more?
what would you pair with?
yeah, I like the shellfish idea. I like sort of the squid / octopus kind of. The
How
very,
Italian of you?
Pardon?
How Italian
Well,
of you?
yeah.
Squid.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's Italian wine has come all this way. It expects to see friends when it gets here. But we did an earlier tasting when we did some of the early ones. I think we had a 14, which was very big. Our agent actually called it his breakfast wine. It was so glycerin, mouth-filling, soft, very pleasant. And we compared it to, we did a tasting with our whole staff against Vietti Arnaise. So we brought in a Vietti Arnaise. And what was interesting is what drove, ours was very fruity and soft, and like I was saying, and the Arnaise was very herbaceous and sort of edgy, but everybody preferred the Vietti, even though it was sort of a little more, like it wasn't as soft and as pleasant. After we fired all the staff, but in the previous years, we're looking to not sort of have that fruit-driven style to the wine.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more where we have a bit of both. We have a little bit of sort of earthy, herbaceous characters, or herby characters to the wine.
we should move on to Dead of the Night.
Let us do that.
Dead of Night. Let's clear away the whites and just do that.
Can I bring some new glasses and
Okay.
we'll all try?
Thank you very much. I'm going to hold this.
Okay,
Thank you.
take these out.
That's nice.
I'll put it next to the coffee that Meg gave me that's going nowhere. We're talking to, they're not in the shot, but we're talking to Beta and Chris Tolley at Moon Curser in the South Okanagan, very close to the border. And, the only one closer is Lariana, and they're coming in this morning as well. They and Moon Curser are one of the very few wineries in the Okanagan coming in and releasing it, and it always sells out. Now, Beta, while you're pouring, you can tell me that Dead of Night is also sold out?
Dead of Night is unfortunately very, very close to being sold out. We have, I think, under 10 cases left in the tasting room at the moment. So, yes, again, going to blame this on Mother Nature.
But you didn't do this on purpose, it's just the way the growing season worked.
Exactly. This is one of the, quote-unquote joys of farming. We'd like to think that we're in control of what happens in the vineyard.
And you're not.
And we're absolutely not, except to just try and react the best way we know how to maintain, the integrity and the quality of the grapes that we bring in. But at the end of the day, who's getting who? Mother Nature always wins.
When people come up to the counter and they ask for your reds and they're familiar with the Syrah, fine.
Yes.
But Dead of Night is a blend of Tanat and Syrah. Do you have to explain the Tanat still to this day?
A lot of our customers who now come into the tasting room are repeat customers, so they're quite familiar with the wines that we make, and they know our Tanat and they like our Tanat. Those who don't, absolutely. There is a little bit of educating that needs to happen and explaining of what kind of wine that is. And of course, Tanat is such a unique beast of a wine in that it's, it's big, it's robust, it's...
Damn, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's really good.
What helps sometimes is mentioning that, Tanat, of course, is the flagship grape of Uruguay, and so we do get customers who are familiar with Tannat from
And
that
the French
part of
like
the
it.
world. Yes,
Yeah,
it's a different. Tannat is grown in Madran, for example, in France, but it's and Chris can speak to this a little bit more. But it's a little bit of it's a different style of wine. I think it tends to be a little bit more on the sort of rustic side of things. The tannins are quite pronounced, whereas on our sandy soils here on the Osoyoos bench, they seem to do a good job of mitigating the potential excess of tannin and bring the wine into focus a little bit more.
Okay.
It's an unusual blend, Syrah and Tannat, as Vita said, from southwest France. Probably would have been a popular variety, but the Port of Bordeaux preferred to ship their own varieties and their own wines out before allowing the ones from south of France. And then Syrah from the Rhone, so they don't meet very often in France, but the synergy between the two varieties is excellent.
And it changes. Is it Tannat driven this year?
It doesn't change much past 50-50. It might be a half barrel or something like that. And what's changed in the later vintages is Christian Scagnetti, who's now a winemaker here as well. He's really gotten into the oaking program and sort of tried to find a synergy between the characteristics of the wine and some of the barrels. So we brought in a lot of different styles, and this being one of our premium wines, it always sees the best of his experiments with the...
Explain premium. I mean, these are select barrels, and just a handful, right?
Yes, we have several blocks of Syrah planted, so every year what we do is basically focus on choosing the best blocks and also the best barrels for blending with the Syrah to create Dead of Night. And again, Chris can probably speak to this a little bit more, but ultimately what we're trying to do is hit that sweet spot, and it tends to be a little bit elusive because it's more magic than science sometimes, making wine and blending wine. But the idea is to get the Syrah and the Tannat working in harmony to create something that is more than the sum of its parts.
Okay.
Lots of tasting involved.
Okay, I'm already at the half-hour mark, and we still haven't gotten to the most important things of all. How many cases of Arnaise are we not allowed to buy?
How many were there this year, Chris? I think just a little bit over 200, wasn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, it was a short.
And how many cases can't I buy of the Dead of Night?
Dead of Night, I think we clocked in at a little bit over 300. I'm sorry, I don't have the
That's quite
exact
all right.
numbers here. But
Now we
that's
come to your
fine.
price points. Where's your notes? You ready? What's the Arnaise?
Arnaise, our tasting room price is $26.99.
If I had it, then I could buy it, fine. And the Dead of Night?
$42.99.
Okay. When we started this partnership and you came on board Tasting Room Radio as a sponsor, I was thrilled and delighted.
Likewise.
And you were then named Best Small Winery in Canada, right?
Yes.
And then and I was extremely busy when the next competition happened, and those medals were boom, 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 boom. And I asked you this jokingly, but are you still the best small winery in Canada, or have they taken you to the big guys and said top 10 winery in Canada? What is it?
Well, I think this might just come down to a technicality at this point, but because of COVID last year, the National Wine Awards of Canada competition didn't happen. So,
But didn't I see a press release that you were winning medals?
oh yes, this was a different competition, 2021 All Canadian Wine
Right.
Competition. The results were just announced, and yes, we brought home 12 medals in total. 2 of those were double gold, and I think 3 or 4 were gold, and so we were delighted.
And did you put on a new hat? What did it say on the hat?
There was no new hat. There was just lots of precious metal around our collective necks, and thank you very much. We're very happy with that. Yeah.
They're running the competition again this year,
Yeah.
so we've entered the competition, and I think their results come out in October. And so we're hopeful.
It's just, as much as I like the title, Best Small Winery in Canada, they also have to take into consideration Best Winery in Canada, period. You have to get it, you have to be part of that. You can't just ghettoize. You just can't sidebar people. if it's a competition between wineries across the country, doesn't matter how big or small. If you come in with your 13 or 14 medals, you should be top 10, top 5, top 3, whatever.
And we were that in 2019 we were, I think, number 2 in all, across Canada, all wineries of all sizes. So that was also a delight to experience for sure.
They were actually quite pleased at that at the competition, because that they intended for exactly what you said to be what their competition is about, irrespective of your size. You can be the best winery in Canada and be 10 acres and 1,000 cases.
Because as you know, you mentioned this, when you get in that room and there's 300 wines in front of you, it becomes a marathon. And you're looking for, and then all of a sudden, strange things happen to your nose and your palate, and all of a sudden you realize exactly where the strengths lie. And there's a truth that shows itself internally.
Oh, and kudos to the judges. And as a person who has experienced what, I guess the judges experience, but on a much smaller scale with our own sort of blending trials here at the winery, it is, you really have to be in the right frame of mind and be quite experienced to know what it is that you're tasting and what you need to be focusing on. So yeah, tough job. I
read all their notes from yeah, and all the way to the ones that won bronze. So you can't get the notes for if a wine didn't, but even for the ones that are bronze, they're remarkably, like, for, as you said, tasting so many wines, to be so, we'd be like, yeah, that's what I got too.
And even though that they know each other, sometimes they just are not going to agree, but the majority of them did, and I like that a lot. Did we give you did you remember your price point on Dead of Night?
Dead of Night is $42.99.
Okay, fine. What's left in the tasting room?
We have still, a fair number of wines left that definitely make it worth coming down to visit us and taste. Some of the wine club exclusive wines have now been sold, so we don't have them. But our standbys that have been favorites of people like Syrah and Bordeaux and Malbec is lovely this year, are all still available. So
Marsan Roussin?
Sadly, no.
No, come on!
Yeah, that one, our Marsan Roussin was a wine club exclusive wine this year, only because of the small quantities, and so hoping for...
That's another new one to us that benefited from Christian's barrel program. That's a little bit of oak on that. For a white wine, we don't, our other varieties were normally just straight without oak, so we did a little bit of oak fermentation on that, and a nice touch onto those two varieties.
2 questions. I'll have the last one. You get the other one. What does the best small winery in Canada want to be when it grows up?
Oh,
the best winery in Canada.
Total underworld domination.
Mission got the number 1 when we were best small winery, and we were number 2 overall as well. And then there was Mission, who seemed to have a stranglehold on.
For a very good reason.
For a good reason. But nevertheless.
But I mean, think of the structure of Mission Hill.
Yes.
The corporation and that actual winery, a grand winery, and you guys here, they're up north, you're down here. It's you guys and your team, and the playing field is level.
What's interesting when you think of Mission Hill as a big winery, and you sort of think of big wineries as these amorphous blobs, but there's a lot of passion there.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what's in common between the two wineries is there's a lot of passion.
They're not fooling around.
No, like some of the Martin's Lane, like some of the projects, it's just that they're fully committed. Okay. And I think that's, eventually that'll show in the wine, because I had a friend who's, anyway.
This is not going to be another long story.
Sorry, it probably will be. I'm just going to skip. I gotta cut bait right away. He said nobody sets out to make bad wine.
Yeah.
Like, you just end up there, and you end up there because there's not enough passion or commitment.
There's a couple. Never mind. There's a couple. I pass them every day. Now, here's the thing. It's literally your question how do I put this? Is there anything we haven't talked about that you're passionate about that you want to just say to this camera and this microphone?
I'd like to answer your question about what are we going to be when we grow up a little
Sure.
bit, if I could, just
Sure.
really quickly. I basically would like to say that we have no plans to grow up. I think that's really what it boils down to.
So you don't have an answer. You just lied to
It's
us.
been great.
Right now we make about 7,000 cases a year, and we have, as you pointed out, our fabulous team. We have a great vineyard team, we have a great tasting room and sales team, and it's just we're at a point where, there seems to be real synergy amongst all of us that contributes to creating wines that we can be proud of. And so it feels like we are never really going to come to a point where Chris and I would like to step back even more. We're at 7,000 cases right now. I think maybe we can get our
10 is
production
your
up to
limit.
10. Yeah, and then that's going to be
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I would love to see, coming full circle,
Yes.
a shot of you out there on the highway with bottles in your left and right and a little farm stand and a babushka. I'd love to see that.
Well, who knows what future will bring? Right now, we're going to just invite everybody to come into our beautiful
Okay.
tasting room and enjoy the wine there.
With like 2 bottles like this and a handwritten
That's
thing of
right,
wine.
handwritten.
Yeah.
Help my mom, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Terry.
Thank you.
It's
for
been
the
a
support.
pleasure. Yeah, I'd
Oh,
love
thank
to
you.
talk to you. Thank you so much.
I have a very special guest, fresh from her being talked about on Tasting Room Radio by Sandra Ofield. I'm welcoming to this Okanagan Reconnect. I'm welcoming to this Okanagan Reconnect Paula Cooper, and winemaker. And as talked about by Sandra Ofield, 10 years at Tin Horn.
Yeah, pretty close.
And was it a constant learning experience? Or once you learned what it was about, were you then allowed to just make your wines?
Absolutely. Sandra was like an amazing mentor, amazing teacher. So you definitely, there was a huge focus on safe operating procedures. We always wanted to make sure that anybody new coming into the cellar was fully capable of doing every job, so we created really good procedures for that. So.
She took her winemaking seriously, didn't she?
Absolutely, yes. I kind of affectionately call her the tsunami because she was just out there in full force.
She's the force, is what she is, yes.
Absolutely.
So, after those 10 years at Tin Horn, you went where?
After 10 years, I did a quick stint at Arterra because I'd never been at any other winery. So I was like, well, let's see how these big companies do it. So it doesn't take long after you've had some freedom in a cellar to kind of get bored of that, because you kind of get stuck doing one job every day, in and out, day in, day out. So then after that, I was looking for something different, so I went on to artists.
And you found something different at CC Yench.
Absolutely. Yeah, when Amber was doing her maternity leave, they were looking for another person to help with the cellar upon her return to the winery. And then when I arrived, I think she found out that just before she was going to return that she was expecting her second baby.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was really exciting for her, but then she decided, well, maybe I shouldn't come back because I'm just going to be leaving again, So then it was, wow, this is my job now. Take over the whole process. So.
Did you like Chris Yench immediately as much as I did?
Oh, he was just a bear. Just awesome. Yeah.
And as my wife was pointing out on a drive yesterday, she was so impressed that we brought our grandson Kyle with us, and when Chris saw him, he immediately walked him around and showed him and answered all of his questions.
Oh yes. Definitely. He was just everybody's greatest cheerleader.
So you're at CC Yench, and I made this booking with you, and you warned me that you were on the move again.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, just with the pending sale of the property, Betty, she doesn't want to carry on without Chris. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you always think of her and carrying on without Chris, and vice versa. And so you looked around, or did somebody tap you on the shoulder and say, "Would you like to come here?"
Well, I was fortunate enough to be approached by Ricky Dollywall from Lakeside Cellars, who's also the loving husband to Danielle Yench. So it's awesome. I get to kind of stick with the family and still watch the kids grow up. So,
but what happens to CCH now? What happens to this great family idea? Sure. So I mean, because we have a mutual friend in Chris Yench and CC Yench. Does the label disappear? How? Any idea how it's going to unfold?
Yes, unfortunately, this will be the end of our label.
Wow. And what will it become?
It will, actually, what will happen is the property is going to be sold. So whoever purchases that property will rebrand it. They'll use the facility, but to create their own label.
The fact still remains is they're stepping into an incredible beginning for whoever it is. I hope they treat it with the reverence that Chris deserves. What's left of the portfolio? I mean, is there a fire sale at the...
Well, we're completely sold out of whites, so unfortunately we're not trying those today. But we do have a nice library release from 2012 all the way up to 2016 of the Syrahs.
No.
So this is a great opportunity for anyone that likes Syrah, because these are all available to taste as well. So you don't even have to guess if you're gonna like that bottle. They are all available for tasting in our wine shop.
How many years there?
Well, there's 5 library releases and 1 current vintage of Syrah.
Pretty damn good.
Yes, definitely. And there's some pretty great ones there. Like the 2013 was given the Judgment of BC. That was the first year that they made Syrah,
I was judging.
Yeah, so they, that was the first year the winery actually produced wine in its own building. So how phenomenal is that?
I phoned him. He said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm on my tractor. I got to get out of the tasting room. This is crazy."
Yeah, he was very, I had so much autonomy working there. Like, Chris just didn't even want to have anything to do with the cellar. It was just like, okay, I'm gonna do the grapes, you do the cellar.
So here's the deal. What did you learn at CC Yench that you can take to Lakeside and beyond? Because how many wineries, as we know, are making wines as concentrated and as beautiful as what Chris made? Mm-hmm. But you learned along the way, so it informs you. You now have been schooled, and you can apply that to whatever you do.
Oh, absolutely. You realize you go from working somewhere as great as Tinhorn Creek, and you get kind of the instruction of, okay, you're going to add this or you're going to add that to the wines. And for a while, you're kind of like, why am I adding these things to the wines? You don't really know. And then when you get moved into a position of winemaking, I always sort of class myself as a cellar master with the really cool label, because when you work by yourself in the cellar, you're doing it all. And then, and I'm also helping in the wine shop. So it's like the nice thing about working at Yench is you just do so many things.
Yeah.
You're just involved with everything. You're involved with the vineyard, you're involved with the making of the wine and the selling of it. So,
and the humanity of it as well.
Absolutely.
It's okay. You can hang around. Just be the studio audience. So the Lakeside, you brought a bottle from Lakeside. What is it?
I did. It is their Portage White.
Whoa, come on around. Right there.
And
right
this actually...
Don't forget the label. Oh, You're in television now.
Okay.
So Lakeside, Porter's White, but I mean, how big is the portfolio?
Well, we at Lakeside Cellars, the portfolio is probably somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 cases. So,
Okay.
but they're making some lovely Bordeaux blend. The Provenir. They have some bubbles.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they have you.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to it because there's a lot of different varietals that I haven't had the opportunity to work with at Lakeside. Like, we're really excited. This is the first vintage of Sunso, which is going to be primarily made into rosé. So I think we're one of the first wineries in the Okanagan to use this for rosé. So we're pretty excited about that.
Okay, so what the hell is the date today? What's the date today, anybody? Is it the 9th?
The 8th of August.
Okay,
It's
here's
my
the deal.
stepdaughter's birthday.
For the rest of, as long as I'm around, on the 8th of August, I will phone you and we will open something and we will salute Christianity.
Absolutely fantastic.
As long as
Love
I can do it, I'm going to
Love
do it.
it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We come, ladies and gentlemen, to the final interview of the 2021 Okanagan Reconnect. The whole idea behind this was to, having not been here for 2 years because of conditions, to get back as soon as possible. You can only do so many Zoom calls, you can only do so many Skype calls, you can only do so many phoners. You have to come back and go knee to knee with the people making the wines and get to see them again through the smiles. And Lariana Sellers have graced us with the last interview, Dan and Carol Scott, who haven't traveled that far. This isn't a reach for them. They're just down the road. I'm at Moon Curser, and they are literally. I actually saw this like 10 steps from the border. If you walk straight out your front door,
Pretty much, yeah. Well,
the border.
the U.S. border, yeah, about 50 feet in the winery door.
And all of you folks that are on that road, is it second or third?
2nd Avenue.
Second Avenue. Do you have a name for yourselves? Are you called Border Harpers, Border or something in this? That community?
There's only us.
There's only us on the road. I guess
You're it?
On
Yeah,
the,
on that side, yeah.
west
Okay.
side of the customs. There's
I
no-
only went as far as the Sellers. I didn't keep going down the road, and I got kind of like I'm sure most people do. Just a tad. You start thinking about where you are at that moment because you see the border and you see the border guards, and you're that last left. It's fantastic. I still love that about Lariana, and we have some mutual friends. Your first plantings were sort of consulted by Richard Cleve.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. He was a long-time family friend of Carol's parents.
Brilliant move.
Yeah, we couldn't have asked for better help to get us started, for sure.
You were asking basically what is this terroir? What's this soil going to give us? What do we want to plant here, right?
Yes, I remember getting him to come out in 2006 and walk the property because we were talking about planting. So we got Dick to come out and walked all over, and he's like, right on. Plant.
He gave it a thumbs
This
up.
is this is what you should plant. These varietals. This is where they're gonna go. It was so exciting. I'll never forget. It was like, oh my God, we are gonna do this.
That's fantastic to have someone say this is what should go here.
Yes.
Yes.
With his experience in the valley,
Yep.
he knew what varieties would grow well at our end.
Yeah. Big reds can ripen down at our end, Cab Sauv, and then he said plant some Viognier because it's the new white grape coming in. So it's very
Way to go,
exciting.
Richard. Dick Cleve. And what year was that?
2006 when we decided to plant, and then we planted in 2007.
That's the year we ended up on the Naramata bench. So, is it possible now, because you're smack dab in the middle of growing season, can you remember what that first growing season, that first crush, that first bottle release was like?
Very exciting. Big eye opener.
For the amount of work that was involved in
Yeah.
the whole process.
So the first growing season, we were not really getting fruit off those vines till the third year.
Yeah.
But then we had help our consultant is Senka tenant. So Senka came on board, and that was very exciting. And that also was partly due to Richard Clave, or 100% due to. He had a chat with Senka and described us and our situation, and would she want to, and she had to have a little thought about it. We didn't know each other.
You bet. Because first time I interviewed her, it was me that was auditioning, not her. She was checking me out because she doesn't exactly like talking into a microphone. But we did become friends. I greatly admired her as a person and as her work. And you follow her through Black Hills and Nota Bene and Terra Vista. I love the fact that they were growing those Spanish grapes on Naramata Bench. And then I was thrilled to hear that she was working with you at the winery. What did you need from her? What advice?
Well, we made amateur wine with a friend and all of her for years, and then once we started working with Senka, because we knew we didn't know enough to do it on a commercial level, and then we found out how much we didn't know about winemaking once we started working with Senka. But just her palate and there's the science to the wine, but hers is more of the art side of the, intuition and.
Yeah, she has it all. We're so fortunate that she's come to help us. She's just an amazing woman.
And you found your place here. I mean, there are bigger, gaudier wineries, right? And the signs, literally the pointed arrow signs going to turn here. Were you happy to be able to grow and let people find you as you went along?
It was, I think it was interesting to not be on the beaten path, so people had to, if they were coming to us, they had to make a point of doing a bit of research and finding out where we were. Excuse me.
And word of mouth was important.
Yes, word of mouth, and a lot of the other wineries sending people our
Yeah.
way, which was a huge help, because we aren't on Black Sage Road where everybody just drives by.
Yeah.
It's been great though. People have sent folks our way. It's taken a few years to get our name out there, but I think we're finally getting there. People are starting to recognize Lariana.
And which release was the first success, would you say?
Well, the 2012 Viognier, John Schreiner gave us.
93 points.
Yes, so that was like, wow. Well, some people came because, okay, we have to taste that wine.
And how many cases that year?
I think we did 200 cases of Viognier.
Yeah.
So it was a very small.
I laugh at you 200 cases because anyway. And now how many cases of Viognier?
This past vintage is around 350, so not a lot.
Whoa!
We are true garage yeast.
You are garage yeast.
Yes.
I have my garage yeast T-shirt in the back. But there's pride in that. It is hands-on winemaking.
Yeah, we're probably 1,200 cases in total between our Viognier and our reds, so it is quite hands-on.
Are you the push-down master? Or are you punch-down?
I do the punch down.
Can I see your hands, please?
They're clean right now
Yeah,
for a few more months. Yeah, spend a lot of time in the winery punching down.
But you built a winery that was small enough that you could work that room. In other words, everything's close by, right?
Yeah. First, when we designed that building, or figured it would fit everything, we did little scale drawings and then spoke to Bill Eggert at Fairview, and Bill said that's not big enough.
He's a troublemaker. So why would you go there? You were doing so well.
Yeah. So the next year we built a barrel cellar because we didn't have room, and then the next year we did case storage because we like to age our wines in bottle for at least a year. So Bill was correct. He straightened us out on a few things.
Yes.
Oh, don't tell him he's correct. At least don't tell him that. Carol, tell me about the people coming into the tasting room, coming into the cellars. Were they young, old? Were they knowledgeable? What kind of people in the beginning and now?
That's hard to say. A mixture of people. Some were curious. Some people came in because they're following Senka and like, this is so interesting.
Of course.
Over time, now it's a lot of repeat people. They're coming back and want to see what's new, seeing if quality is still there.
And there's the newsletter. I signed up for the newsletter
Oh, did you?
Yep.
Okay,
this
wonderful.
very morning.
Oh, did you? Fantastic. Thank you.
So the newsletter helped, and this is going to help. And my own word of mouth, because I have been recommending you guys for quite some time. I love the taste that I first came, and the Viognier just knocked my socks off. And you happen to bring one.
Yes.
This is the 2020 limited production.
Yeah, so this vintage was 340 cases, so
Yeah.
so not very much.
We just have a 5-acre vineyard.
Yeah.
We are planting a little bit more Carmenere, but I don't think the Viognier production is going to go up much.
No.
You could go and buy a vineyard somewhere, couldn't you? Or a plot of land, or
Yes, you could. There's not a lot of vacant land around, or we purchased a little bit of Viognier from just across the street here, basically, from a grower we've worked with for 8 years now.
you know what I like about this is there's also, it's not just winemaking, it's your career and it's also your life. You want to control your life because as you know, the larger you get, the less life you have.
I was going to say we can't do any more work, so we're at a stage where we can kind of manage it.
Yeah.
We have a couple of helpers, which is wonderful. If we went bigger, that's a whole nother ballgame.
And then there's more staff and more headaches and more time spent. So
I know you would have been open to Senka's suggestions and guidance. How has she helped to create, like, for example, the Viognier on the table?
She's all about the gentle processing, gentle pressing,
and tasting the grapes in the vineyard
Yeah.
when it's getting ready for
Yeah.
harvest.
that's
'cause
one of the hugest decisions.
the science
when
is
to
easy.
pick.
Anybody can take sugar and pH and acid test, but it's her flavor of tasting the grapes, walking through, and I follow her and try and pick a grape off the same cluster and try and get those flavors imprinted in my head, because she's, we think, oh, the numbers are there, we're ready to go, and she'll say, no, another few days. And
She'd probably kick my ass if I asked her this question, but I kind of wonder how much of it is gut instinct, because she knows so much.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of it on her part is just the feeling she gets when she's out there.
Yeah, and that's it. That's what you're getting with
Yeah.
Senka Tennant.
And she's very thoughtful, wise, and then, okay, guys, this is my thoughts. And it's like, of course, Senka, we're going with it. Why would we not?
First of all, just surrounding yourself with those people, it's wonderful, because you know the wines are going to be great, and you know nobody has to be sold at the counter. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. Just pour me what's available and let me decide how much I'm taking away.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
All right, so this 340 cases. What's the price point on the Viognier?
$27.
Well done. After all that work.
Yes.
It sometimes seems like it's not enough, but for the hours that we put in, but it's where we feel it fits into the market.
Where are we going to be able to find it?
We're sold out at the winery right now, but there are some stores in the valley here and Lower Mainland and on the island.
I don't
Restaurants.
see a list on the website. How would I chase that?
There is a list on the website.
Is there?
There's
Is it?
there is a little page. I think it's
Okay.
under Find Our Wines, but there's a few fabulous stores in the Lower Mainland and up the valley that carry our wines. So
Okay. Restaurants?
We are in quite a few restaurants in the Lower Mainland and up here and in town here, which is nice. But it seems when our first vintage, the 2012, our blend 12, we didn't have any representation at that point, so me and Carol would load up the car and try and make appointments with the sommeliers.
and who are you?
Great, and another winery in the Okanagan.
There you go.
But we had a great first experience.
Yes, we went into Gotham's and their sommelier there.
Christopher
Yeah.
McFadden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He loved the wines and he took it right off the start, which was really, really weird.
Did he take the entire production?
No.
Because some do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we didn't have very much, but yeah, he put it on the list.
Yeah,
and
he
we were
doesn't
pretty
know
thrilled.
we were so excited that day. I don't think our feet were on the ground. He was like, yeah, take it.
Yeah.
So,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that Viognier. Do you have a favorite? Have you done a vertical?
We haven't done a vertical.
No. 2018 was one of my favorites,
Hmm.
the Viognier.
Is there any left?
We have a couple bottles.
Do you sell winery wines? I mean, will you empty?
At some point, some
We've kept some of the
library
reds.
releases.
Yeah.
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 Kept the
Okay.
reds back.
Yeah.
Let's talk reds for just a second then.
Okay.
Talking to Lariana. I'll bring that one over here for just a moment. Thank you. I love Cabernet. I don't know who turned me on to it. Somebody was kind enough to say, you should pay attention here. This is the 2018. You sell or in bottle yourself?
Yep. We have the mobile bottling line comes down to bottle for us, but then we spend 16, 18 months in oak
Yep.
generally.
New Oak French?
80%-ish French and probably 30% new each vintage.
Yeah.
Yeah, Senka's not wanting to have too much new oak on the wine, so, and she likes to have some American oak.
on the
On the
Carmenere.
Carmenere.
Yeah, definitely.
Seems to do well for her experience from Black Hills.
Do you still have to explain what the varietal is to some people?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, they say, what's in that blend? what is that? Carmenere.
I mean, there's only, that we have know that there's only 5 of us growing it in the valley here, or
Yeah.
producing, there's probably more growers, but there's only 5 of us producing Carmenere, so Moon Curser being one.
Yeah. And how different is theirs from yours?
It is quite different.
It's amazing. We do a tasting sometimes.
And you're
Take
only
a Moon Curser
how many
or Black Hills.
kilometers?
3.
Three
maybe.
3 kilometers
Yeah.
away.
But just the different side of the valley too.
Yeah.
It's a little hotter in the afternoon on this side. So a little bit different flavors and different soil structure, I
For
think,
sure,
too.
different soil.
But it, yeah, it seems to be, now that our vines are getting a little older, Senka's figuring now it's really starting to come into the Carmenere notes. rather than-
Absolutely. They're deeper. They know who they are. They know what they are, right?
Mhm.
So now come the hard questions. How many cases?
This 18 Carm was our largest vintage ever. It was just around 300.
Mhm.
Most years we're lucky if we get 200. It's not a high yielding plant. So,
You guys just killed me. And the price points?
this is $52.
Okay. Is there any left?
A little bit. We have a very small amount at the winery, and then it is in a few stores around, but not a lot because we just don't make very much.
Is the tasting room open?
Not this summer.
No.
Our wine club just grew like crazy. The numbers went up, and with COVID and people not traveling, the online orders were amazing.
And will
Huge
next year be
support.
different?
The 2019 vintage was smaller, so I don't know if we'll even have enough to open. We'll see. I guess
Once
in
we
spring.
satisfy the wine club members, and there's not a lot left.
You guys,
I know.
you've caused this. Okay.
Let's
Can I have a
taste it.
taste, please? I need a drink.
So,
Is it wrong to just want pepper?
no, it is very peppery.
Yeah, some nice white pepper and
A little more savory than fruity.
My goodness. Do we talk about Carmenere in terms of clones?
no, we didn't.
You know how they go crazy with Pinot. So is
Yeah.
there,
I don't.
There's just not enough of us. I don't know if there's enough of. I'm not sure what clones everyone is growing, or the differences where people
Okay.
know the clones and the cab and know.
well, and the level of pepper goes up and down, right? And it's kind of different, very spicy. It's fantastic. For those of you thinking, well, what's going on in the bottle? White pepper, spice, wood, cedar box or cigar box or whatever. Everything's going on in this bottle. It's fantastic. It's a 2018. What's the cellar life of the Carmenere?
10 years plus. We don't have a long track record yet because our wines aren't that old, but Senka figures at least 10.
And what happens in those 10 years? How does it change in the bottle?
Tannins soften a little bit. I mean, it's not a very high tannic wine to start with. Just the flavors soften a little bit. And
Okay. And where are we with the number series, by the way? What number are we up to?
18 will be released in the end of this month.
Primarily cab?
Yep, this vintage is 54% cab, 26 Syrah, and 20 Carmenere. So it changes each year.
That's crazy.
So
How many cases?
the blend was 375-ish, something like that.
What's the number on it?
Price point?
No,
Oh,
the label?
18.
18. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, we name our blends for the vintage.
And now the
years.
price point.
47.
So you do have something to sell.
Coming up in the
Coming
fall,
up,
yes.
yes.
And our 2018 Cab Sauv, 100% Cab Sauv will be coming out at the same time.
Oh, man. There's so many ways I can go with this. Were you the first concrete users?
No, when we were looking to buy our equipment in 2011, we still hadn't decided. We decided to do the winery. We sold our grapes for a couple of years to other wineries, and then in 2011 we decided to take the next step.
Yeah.
And we spoke to Michael Barchier when he was the winemaker at Okanagan Crush Pad,
Yeah.
and they had six of the
Six.
concrete.
Yeah,
ones.
those original
So
six.
yeah, so we saw that and talked to him about, they're doing their side by sides in stainless and concrete, and we were quite intrigued. So we decided to order one right from the start.
Did you like?
That's what our Viogniers predominantly in concrete, and we bought another small vessel.
Did it
since then.
change the texture?
Yeah, it's a little creamier, richer,
Yeah.
a little bit of minerality, but nice for temperature control, so we can ferment it at a nice constant temperature. So we're quite happy with the concrete.
Okay, if you want to talk to the actual wine fan, what what message you want to give them in terms of Lariana about why it might be in their might be interesting to follow you, to get the newsletter, to just follow what's going on. There's a story here. Anyone? I'm looking at you.
I know you are. What would I to come out and try it? You have to try it, taste it. We're new at this young, but our consultant has years of experience and knowledge, and it shows in the wines. It's just
You
magnificent.
listen well. When she talks, you listen.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely. Yes. Well, of course. Why wouldn't we?
And she's so passionate about it. You know the wine's going to be passionate. You know the wine's going to be
Yes.
complete, and you're very proud of it. You are proud of it, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Very
yes.
proud, and we're so proud to have worked alongside her in those first couple of years. She went through everything with us. Just every step of the way, and what fun we've had. And we have lots of fun still with her.
And going forward, will you be the same people? Will I see you next year? Will be the...
Yep.
Absolutely.
Not planning on changing anything. Planting a little bit more fruit. We've got a little bit more land on our property that we're going to develop.
What do you want to plant?
We planted another 500 Carmenere this just spring, and then another 2,500 plants are going in next spring. So more Carmenere and more Cab Sauv. We just don't grow enough of it, and
For a total production of...
we'll have about 8 acres planted in vines. So our production,
It'll still be under 2,000
Yes.
cases.
Garage East,
Yes, yes, all the way.
on the border. Thank you very much for guesting me, for concluding this journey for me.
it was our pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much for having us.
Okay,
Wonderful.
I got a taste.